The magic core on the Dou Qi Continent is also called a magic crystal. As the name suggests, this is a type of energy core located within a magical beast's body, inside which is filled with extremely violent natural energy. Regarding this kind of energy, even a Dou king wouldn't dare to risk the danger of their body exploding by forcefully absorbing it. Although a magic core cannot be directly absorbed, it is an essential primary ingredient when refining medicine. Magic cores, after being refined through the secret methods of a refiner, will be magically neutralized of their violent attribute by certain medicinal herbs, finally becoming various types of spirit medicines that increase strength, which everyone dreams of, causing their price to instantly soar. Furthermore, magic cores can also be affixed to weapons. Weapons affixed with magic cores will not only have their destructive power increased by a level, but also have the appealing Dou Qi amplification special effect, making them highly sought after by the Dou practitioners strata on the Dou Qi Continent. Of course, besides weapons, magic cores can also be affixed to armor and some other items, helping the owner gain a powerful defensive force, giving people a few more chances to protect their lives when facing danger. So many special effects naturally make the magic core the most welcomed material on the Dou Qi Continent. Not only Dou practitioners, but even the venerable alchemists, frequently travel everywhere searching for high-grade magic cores, to refine higher-level elixirs. Under the influence of this trend, magic cores on the continent are almost always in a state of inadequate supply every year. High-level magic cores, as soon as they appear at auction houses or other places, will immediately be bought at a high price. The preciousness of the magic core naturally creates many mercenary groups that specialize in killing magical beasts for a living. However, obtaining a magic core is not an easy task. Firstly, magical beasts not only possess formidable strength but are also unusually cunning. Due to their ferocious nature and unique attack methods, magical beasts are often stronger than human experts of the same level. Therefore, wanting to kill a magical beast of the same level alone, without outstanding strength, it's very easy to try to steal a chicken only to lose the rice. Secondly, not every magical beast's body contains this type of energy crystallization magic core. Like a certain ratio, sometimes a mercenary group, having half their men injured to kill a magical beast, might not have any harvest. This kind of incident is not the first time on the Dou Qi Continent, it's not surprising. Therefore, the price of magic cores on the Dou Qi Continent is always very high. After walking on the intersection for a while with Sun Er, they finally entered a medium-sized commercial district in the south of the city. There are only a few such medium-sized commercial districts in Wutian City, separately controlled by the three major clans. The market Xiao Yan came to is the one controlled by his Xiao clan. To say it is controlled is less accurate than to say they maintain the order and safety of the commercial district, and the reward is the tax that mercenaries or merchants must pay the clan after trading or opening a shop. This is the long-standing rule of the Dou Qi Continent, and it is rare to see anyone come to cause trouble. Entering through the commercial district's entrance, there were two Xiao clan guards. They obviously knew the two people, Xiao Yan and Sun Er. Seeing them approach, they were both stunned, then immediately bowed slightly. Nodding softly, Xiao Yan immediately walked in. Looking at the ceaseless flow of people, he couldn't help but lick his lips. No wonder the clan managed the commercial district so strictly. The profit from this popularity, he feared, would be not small. Third young master, Miss Sun Er, are you visiting the commercial district to buy some things? A respectful voice came from behind as the two were dazzled by the crowd. Hearing the voice, Xiao Yan turned his head. 7 or 8 big men wearing the uniform of the Xiao clan were standing there, and the person speaking was a 30-year-old sturdy male leader. The man wore an insignia on his chest with 6 gold stars, clearly making him a 6-star Dou practitioner. Seeing Xiao Yan's questioning gaze, the man smiled heartily and said, "Respectfully, third young master, my name is Bai Yan, the guard captain of the clan leader, specially assigned to protect the safety of the commercial district. I also met you at the young master's birthday last year. Oh, so it's Uncle Bai En then. Xiao Yan blinked. Although he had no impression of this big man, his introduction just now made Xiao Yan smile. Since his father personally gave the order, he would naturally be his direct subordinate, and his loyalty would be no problem. Although the Xiao clan is not a superpower, the clan is also divided into several factions. If the big man in front was a person of one of the elders, Xiao Yan wouldn't have cared, just casually responded a bit. It's a bit boring in the clan, so I came out to buy some things. Uncle Bai En, you go about your work. If there's anything, I'll call you. Xiao Yan's tender voice did not have the arrogance of a young master, instead, it was polite and gentle, which made people feel relaxed. The single call of uncle made the smile on Bai En's face a few shades warmer, and he became even more enthusiastic. Nodding, he smiled, then third young master, feel free to shop. Our people are all over the commercial district. If anything happens, just call out. Nodding politely, Xiao Yan pulled Sun Er into the crowd and then disappeared. Molly, have 2 men follow the third young master, and warn those petty thieves. If anyone dares to lay a finger on the third young master and Miss Sun Er, they won't need to hang around here anymore. Watching the young man and young woman disappear, Bai En turned around and shouted softly, his honest face instantly transforming into a sharp and capable one. Yes, Captain. A big man nodded deeply, waved his hand, and led 2 men into the crowd. The third young master treats others so gently, it really makes one feel at ease. Bai En smiled, watching the 3 people blend into the crowd. Then immediately sighed with regret, such a good young man, what a pity, alas. Shaking his head regretfully, Bai En led his subordinates to continue their patrol, lazily following behind Xiao Yan. Sun Er glanced at the crowd behind them, and faintly smiled, Brother Xiao Yan, that Bai En doesn't seem too bad. Xiao Yan hummed softly, his eyes sweeping over a shop. His spiritual sense was much stronger than normal people, so he was clearly aware of the guards following them. He withdrew his gaze, slowed his pace, walking shoulder to shoulder with the young girl next to him. Smelling the young girl's light, elegant scent, he tilted his head and said playfully, 9-stage Dou Qi, yet you can sense 3 guards who are skilled in stealth. Sun Er, you are truly outstanding. Sun Er copied Xiao Yan's manner, shrugged adorably, and then used her killer move, smiling in silence. Looking at the quiet girl, a gentle smile appeared on Xiao Yan's lips. He lightly patted the girl's head, and in a voice only the 2 of them could hear, he whispered with a laugh, although I don't know your identity or your background, I only know that you are my younger sister. No matter what happens in the future, remember this, stand behind me, if the sky falls, your big brother will help you hold it up. Smiling gently, Xiao Yan clapped his hands and quickened his pace, walking forward. Stopping, Sun Er's beautiful eyes followed the graceful young man walking ahead. After being stunned for a moment, Sun Er finally came back to her senses. A gentle smile filled the corners of her mouth, finally overflowing her exquisite face with alluring charm. In the bustling crowd of the commercial district, the young girl smiled lightly. Her elegant figure was like a lotus flower, pure and distant. Younger sister. Sun Er is a very greedy girl. Lifting her head, Sun Er softly murmured to herself, then opened her mouth and smiled faintly, catching up to the young man walking leisurely ahead. Following Xiao Yan's wandering, they slowly entered the center of the commercial district. The goods sold here were much more valuable than outside, so the people who could shop in this area were considered to have some power in Wuten City. Taking advantage of Xiao Yan's search for a place selling magic crystals, Sun Er also boredly walked over to a clean shop. Her fair, soft hand picked up a light blue bracelet. The material of the bracelet was very ordinary, just inlaid with a little ice silver. Giving people a cool feeling, very suitable for wearing in the summer. Although the material was ordinary, it looked very elegant. Playing with it casually for a moment, Sun Er was about to buy it but then remembered that all her money was lent to Xiao Yan. She turned her head slightly, saw the young man intently searching, and could only helplessly shake her head. She smiled apologetically towards the old man who owned the shop, put down the bracelet, and lazily walked forward again. Her personality was reserved and graceful, so it was very difficult for her to proactively ask anyone to buy her anything, even Xiao Yan. Walking not far, Sun Er felt a bit bored, and was about to go back to Xiao Yan when a clear voice suddenly came from ahead. Isn't this Miss Sun Er? I didn't expect to meet you here, what a fate. Frowning lightly, Sun Er looked in the direction of the voice, seeing a group of people approaching. Leading the way was a young man in luxurious clothes. The young man was about 20 years old, with a somewhat handsome appearance, but his complexion was slightly pale. His fiery eyes looked at the youthful girl, standing upright and beautiful, with undisguised admiration in his gaze. Looking at the handsome young man's joyful expression, Sun Er frowned slightly, ignored his call, and turned to walk away. Miss Sun Er. Seeing Sun Er turn around, the handsome young man's pale face immediately became anxious. He quickened his steps, finally blocking Sun Er's path. Being blocked by the young man, Sun Er had to stop. Her autumn water-like eyes narrowed, looking at the young man with a hint of laziness, not saying a word. Miss Sun Er. Being stared at by those autumn water-like eyes. The young man who usually chased after beauties all day found his breathing suddenly become short. He was usually wordy and eloquent, but now he couldn't say a single sentence. Young Master Yao Lao. If there is nothing, please step aside. I still have things to do. Looking at the young man's slightly flushed face, Sun Er finally spoke. Her voice was soft and gentle, which made the face of the young man opposite her suddenly turn red, as if he were sick. Haha, Miss Sun Er, what did you come to the market to buy? I happen to be idle, why don't we shop together? Taking a deep breath. Internally, the smile on Yao Lao's face was bright and gentle. This, coupled with the young man's status and appearance, had helped him win over beautiful women several times before. Young Master Xiao Lao, I've already said I have things to do. Can you get out of the way? Sun Er's small mouth pouted slightly. Her voice was calm without any fluctuation. Being rejected so directly by Sun Er, Xiao Lao's mouth twitched slightly, but the smile on his face remained the same. He reached into his chest and searched for a moment, finally taking out a bracelet. The bracelet was light golden blue, cast from blue gold iron. At the bracelet's joint hung a round green magic crystal. A faint green light radiated from it. Judging by its appearance, this beautifully crafted bracelet was quite luxurious. Haha, Miss Sun Er has things to do, and for Xiao Lao to block your way is being a bit difficult for the Mississippi. Xiao Lao carefully held the bracelet, smiling attentively. This is a wood spirit bracelet that I specifically bought at the market. Although it cannot be considered a precious item, the bracelet also has a first-grade wood attribute magic core attached, which is very helpful for recovering Dou Qi. Miss Sun Er is not yet a Dou practitioner, so this bracelet is really a very good ornament for you. It's a small token of my sincerity. Miss Sun Er shouldn't refuse, or Xiao Lao will truly lose face with my subordinates. Saying the last sentence, Xiao Lao deliberately added a hint of humor, and the surrounding subordinates cooperated perfectly by bursting into laughter. Looking at Xiao Lao's actions, Sun Er's delicate brows furrowed again. She truly felt a bit at a loss with this thick-skinned fellow. Just as she was about to refuse, her gaze suddenly stopped at the green magic crystal on the bracelet's joint. Remembering the difficulty in searching for a wood attribute magic crystal, Sun Er's slender eyelashes couldn't help but flutter slightly. Her cold little face seemed to become a little softer. Seeing Sun Er's appearance, which seemed to be moved, Yao Lao was delighted. Internally, he hurriedly presented the wood spirit bracelet, smiling, "Miss Sun Er, you don't need to be modest. The Jiaolai clan and the Xiao clan are both among Wuten City's 3 major clans. For things exchanged between the 2 clans, no one can say anything bad." Sun Er didn't hesitate, and just as she was about to reach out to accept it, a hand suddenly moved faster, grasping her wrist. Surprised by her hand being held, the Dou Qi in Sun Er's body quickly circulated. Just as she was about to pull her wrist away, a soft grunt from the young man made her obediently stop struggling. Her eyes shifted slightly, and Sun Er looked at Xiao Yan, who had suddenly appeared behind her. Her gaze moved up a bit, and she also saw his tender face that was somewhat unsightly. "Don't you even know what kind of person this guy is?" Glaring fiercely at Sun Er, Xiao Yan secretly blamed her in his heart, then looked up and smiled. "Young Master Jiao Lao, Sun Er appreciates your kindness, but sorry, please take this bracelet back." Seeing the atmosphere between him and Sun Er destroyed, a trace of anger flashed in Jiao Lao's eyes. However, to maintain his composure in front of the beauty, Jiao Lao could only force a smile and say, "Young Master Xiao Yan, I just noticed that Miss Sun Er wasn't wearing any jewelry, so I simply wanted to show a little bit of sincerity. Could it be that you don't want a small piece of jewelry to add a bit more beauty to Miss Sun Er?" Sighing helplessly, Xiao Yan glanced at the wood spirit bracelet Jiao Lao was holding. He also reached into his chest and took out a light green bracelet and said calmly, "You like bracelets? Here, take this. Don't take other people's stuff. I've already told you, anyone who is unnecessarily attentive is either a lecher or a thief. You are so foolish, you might be bought by others without even realizing it." Hearing Xiao Yan's words, which scolded the person while talking about something else, Jiao Lao's face turned cold, but when his eyes scanned the bracelet Xiao Yan was holding, he was surprised and then laughed. The bracelet in Xiao Yan's hand, judging from the material, was clearly just a cheap street vendor item that cost no more than 1 gold coin. In contrast, his wood spirit bracelet was a genuine piece of jewelry with an attached magic crystal. When he bought it, it cost him over 1,000 gold coins. The 2 bracelets, regardless of appearance, price, or practical value, were worlds apart and couldn't be compared. Therefore, seeing Xiao Yan give the beautiful Sun Er such a shabby ornament, Jiao Lao truly couldn't help but mock, "Young Master Xiao Yan, although I know your status in the clan isn't high, but you shouldn't give such a shabby thing to Miss Sun Er, should you?" Ignoring Jiao Lao's mockery, Xiao Yan tugged at Sun Er's hand, who was stunned looking at his bracelet. He said a little impatiently, "Do you want it or not? It only costs 2 or 3 gold coins anyway." Pfft. Hearing Xiao Yan, not only Jiao Lao but also his subordinates burst into mocking laughter. But their laughter suddenly stopped, as if choked in their throats. They all stood mouths agape, looking extremely funny. The young girl, who had been stunned, was woken up by Xiao Yan's action. As if unconsciously, she snatched the bracelet from Xiao Yan's hand. Only when the bracelet was in her hand did Sun Er regain her senses. Her own action seemed a little too eager. Her beautiful, pale face flushed red. However, Sun Er was not like an ordinary person. After a brief moment of embarrassment, she hurriedly put the bracelet on her snow-white wrist. She raised her head and gave Xiao Yan an elegant, charming smile. "Thank you, brother Xiao Yan." Jiao Lao looked at Sun Er's somewhat unnatural expression, revealing the demeanor of an ordinary young girl in front of Xiao Yan, and a look of jealousy appeared on his face. He chuckled awkwardly and said, "Ha ha, I didn't think Miss Sun Er's taste was so unconventional. It seems I miscalculated." Xiao Yan glanced at Jiao Lao in front of him, his eyes sweeping over a single star on Jiao Lao's chest, feeling a bit surprised in his heart. "When I saw this guy last year, wasn't he 9-stage Dou Qi? I didn't expect that this year he's successfully condensed his complete Dou Qi and become a one-star Dou practitioner. However, becoming a one-star Dou practitioner at 21, this talent can only be barely considered upper grade. Seeing that Xiao Lao still had no intention of leaving, Xiao Yan's mouth moved slightly. His words carried a hint of laziness. And he did not show any politeness despite the opponent's strength. The relationship between the Xiao clan and the Xiao Lai clan was originally not good, so Xiao Yan didn't need to be humble. Touching his nose, Xiao Yan said faintly, "Young Master Xiao Lao, your promiscuous reputation is known throughout Wuten City. But Sun Er is still young, she doesn't have time to play premature romantic games with you. Therefore please go flirt with other families' daughters from now on. Stay away from him from now on." After saying this, Xiao Yan ignored Xiao Lao's ugly expression. Relying on his age advantage, he turned his head and preached maturely to Sun Er. "Oh." Sun Er's nimble eyes blinked and she nodded without caring. To her, Xiao Lao was merely someone she had met a few times by chance. But Xiao Yan, to her, was an irreplaceable person. Since he said so, Sun Er would not object. This problem basically didn't require any thought for Sun Er. Sun Er's calm agreement to Xiao Yan's words made Xiao Lao's mouth twitch repeatedly. His tightly clenched fist trembled slightly. His sinister eyes glared fiercely at the young man with the calm expression in front of him. A group of subordinates behind Xiao Lao saw their young master's ugly expression and understood the intent. They stepped forward to surround the two people, their eyes showing absolutely no good intentions. In the depths of the commercial district, there were quite a few people walking around. The sudden conflict caused many curious people to come and watch. After all, both of them had a bit of a reputation in Wuten City. Xiao Yan was known for his name as a cripple, while Xiao Lao was a faithless and unjust fellow. Although their reputations weren't great, they could still be considered two famous people. Looking at the opponent's series of actions, Xiao Yan frowned. His tender face showed a hint of amusement. He then turned his head and gently smiled at a certain spot in the commercial district. Seeing Xiao Yan's action, the curious onlookers turned their heads, only to see the commercial district's guard team, led by Captain Bai En, rushing over aggressively. Bai En quickly ran over with the guard team. He waved his hand, and his guards immediately fiercely restrained Xiao Lao's servants. In a short period, the two sides were on edge, ready to draw swords. "Third young master, what's wrong?" Arriving behind Xiao Yan, Bai En first glanced at Xiao Lao's group opposite. Then immediately smiled respectfully and asked. Xiao Yan smiled, tilted his head to look at Xiao Lao's unsightly face, and slowly said, "Young Master Xiao Lao, this area is the territory of the Xiao clan. Do you think you can make a move here?" Xiao Lao's eyes showed a hint of wariness. He then turned back and smiled coldly at Xiao Yan. "Do you only know how to rely on your family's power? If you were a man, you want to tell me that if I were a man, I would have a fair match with you, is that right?" Xiao Yan suddenly waved his sleeve, cutting off Xiao Lao's words with a laugh. Xiao Lao laughed coldly and said provocatively, "That's right, do you dare?" Looking at Xiao Lao's provocative expression, Xiao Yan seemed a little helpless and sighed. He touched his forehead. After a moment, he looked up, shrugged slightly, and said with an honest and innocent expression, "Young Master Xiao Lao, let me ask you a question. How old are you this year?" Xiao Lao's mouth twitched, and he sullenly remained silent. "Big brother, you are 21 this year, and how old am I?" 15. You want to duel with a child who hasn't even held the coming-of-age ceremony? Don't you know that your demand makes others blush?" Xiao Yan sighed, his face showing a look of helplessness, which made Sun Er beside him unable to stop herself from giggling softly. "Ha ha. Hearing the young man's innocent words, the mercenaries and merchants around immediately burst into laughter. Indeed, at Xiao Yan's age, he could at most be considered a naive youth whose mouth still smelled of milk, while Yao Lao had long since come of age. This kind of challenge truly made everyone contemptuous in their hearts. Seeing the mocking gazes around him, it was like a bucket of cold water that brought Yao Lao back to his senses a little. Xiao Yan always displayed a mature and detached demeanor, which made him unconsciously forget his age. So, when reminded, Yao Lao finally remembered that the former genius young man in front of him was only 15 this year. Fiercely gritting his teeth, Yao Lao looked at the Xiao clan guards, standing behind Xiao Yan like tigers eyeing prey. Knowing that he had no chance to teach him a lesson today, he could only coldly shake his head and said in a deep voice, "After 1 year, you will hold your coming-of-age ceremony." Hee, looking at a cripple like you, I fear that after the ceremony, you'll be arranged to go to the farthest places. You won't even have the qualification to enter Wuten City anymore. How truly pathetic, eh? Xiao Yan smiled, shrugged, and didn't reply. His eyebrows twitched. He didn't know why, but whenever he saw the young man's calm and unhurried face in front of him, his anger flared up. You are a cripple, why are you pretending to be so profound and unpredictable? Forcibly suppressing the anger in his heart, Yao Lao coldly snorted. Then waved his hand and led his subordinates away. Oh, that's right. Yao Lao's steps suddenly stopped. As if he remembered something, he turned back and smiled. Young Master Xiao Yan, I heard your Xiao clan was fiercely broken off the engagement by Nalan Yenran of the Nalan clan. Hee, actually, it's nothing. With your cultivation talent, you don't deserve Miss Nalan anyway. Ha ha. After saying these words, Yao Lao finally laughed loudly and left. Xiao Yan's eyes were somewhat gloomy as he watched Yao Lao leave. He held Sun Er's hand tightly beside him and said faintly, he's just a mad dog anyway. If he bites you, do you really want to bite him back? But he went too far. Are we just going to let him go? Sun Er's delicate brows furrowed slightly. She sounded a little indignant. There will be a chance. Xiao Yan squinted his eyes and smiled. The sinister coldness emanating from the corner of his mouth made even Bayan beside him shiver slightly. A lion that bites is not scary, the scary one is a lion that knows how to endure. Uncle Bayan, thank you all for the trouble. Xiao Yan turned and smiled warmly at Bayan's group. The gloomy aura from before instantly turned into joy and frankness. Marveling internally at Xiao Yan's change of emotion, Bayan's smile carried an extra touch of awe from the bottom of his heart. Regardless of Xiao Yan's cultivation talent, just with this mindset, his future achievements would likely not be low. Third young master is joking. This place is our territory, so how can we let people from the Jialai clan come and cause trouble? Bayan chuckled. Seeing Xiao Yan looking around, he said goodbye and voluntarily led his men away. Watching Bayan's group leave, Xiao Yan then turned and stroked Sun Er's soft long hair. He said angrily, you little fool, a mere first-grade magic crystal made you moved. Don't you know what kind of person that guy is? If you accept his gift, won't he take advantage? Tidying up the few strands of hair that Xiao Yan had messed up, Sun Er helplessly waved her hand, something delivered to the door. There's no need to refuse. Xiao Yan rolled his eyes, feeling a little dumbfounded. It wasn't anything precious either. You made such a fuss over it. You are the genius young girl of the Xiao clan, after all. Sun Er lightly wrinkled her adorable nose, held up the bracelet in her hand, and said playfully, so brother Xiao Yan was always paying attention to Sun Er. Glaring at Sun Er, Xiao Yan took her hand and continued to walk towards some shops deeper in the commercial district. After passing a few shops, Xiao Yan finally stopped. He turned around and looked at a green crystal that still had some bloodstains. He breathed a sigh of relief and smiled, finally found it. As his hand reached out, intending to pick up the magic crystal, his hand stiffened. A strange feeling suddenly arose in his heart. He licked his lips. Xiao Yan's hand still held the magic crystal as before, then his eyes casually swept across the shop as if he didn't care. A moment later, Xiao Yan's gaze stopped at a black iron piece next to the magic crystal. The black iron piece looked very ancient. The surface was covered with patterns, but there was still some dirt that hadn't been washed off. It looked very much like an item that had just been excavated from the ground. "Ha, little Yanzi, buy that black iron piece. That's good stuff." Just as Xiao Yan was feeling strange because of his own reaction, old Yao's voice suddenly rang out in his heart. Hearing the voice ring in his heart, Xiao Yan's eyes blinked slightly. He inconspicuously nodded. He didn't immediately pick up the black iron piece. Xiao Yan gently held the green magic crystal that still had a little blood on it. He smiled at the mercenary man who looked a bit shifty-eyed behind the counter and asked, "What kind of magical beast is this magic crystal from?" "Heh, young master's eyesight is sharp. This is the magic crystal of a first-grade magical beast, the wood-devouring fox. Among the first-grade magic crystals, it is considered a top-quality item. For this magic crystal, our sharp-toothed mercenary group had to ambush for 3 days, killing 5 wood-devouring foxes, just to obtain this one magic crystal." Seeing Xiao Yan's extraordinary attire, the mercenary man immediately introduced it attentively. "If young master likes it's only 500 gold coins. Because of hunting the wood-devouring fox, a few of our brothers were seriously injured." Xiao Yan's finger wiped away the bloodstain on the magic crystal, and he indeed found that the bloodstain was not completely dry. He nodded slightly and glanced at the 2 gold stars on the opponent's chest. He said casually, "Too expensive. The price of a normal first-grade magic crystal is 400 to 450. Moreover, although the wood-devouring fox is also a magical beast, its attack power is not high. Your team members couldn't have been less than Dou practitioners, could they?" The mercenary man's mouth twitched, and he chuckled awkwardly twice. He clearly hadn't expected the young man in front to be so knowledgeable about the market and magical beasts. He immediately said, 470 then. It can't be less. After all, our brothers also have to make a living. Alas. The mercenary man sighed. His eyes were anxious. Xiao Yan bent down, grabbed a bunch of random items on the counter, and the strange iron piece was conveniently among them. He held up the items in his hand, 470 for everything here. Looking at the items in Xiao Yan's hand, the mercenary man secretly breathed a sigh of relief. "Fortunately, I still made a profit." "Deal." Xiao Yan readily took out some large gold coins. Without another word, he turned and walked away. "Ha, little Yanzi, not bad. Even buying an item, you have to be so stingy." As he turned around, old Yao's amusing voice rang out in his heart. "Those guys are all profiteers. As soon as they see you're interested in something, they immediately raise the price. I don't want to lose money unjustly." Xiao Yan replied calmly in his heart. He didn't pay any more attention to the eccentric old man in the ring. He and Sun Er leisurely walked out of the commercial district and then slowly returned to the clan. Parting with Sun Er, Xiao Yan rushed back to his room, and then carefully closed the door tightly. Turning around, looking at old Yao, who had come out at some unknown time, Xiao Yan took out the medicinal materials and magic crystal he had bought. He said a little anxiously, "Everything needed is here. What should I do next?" Old Yao chuckled. His eyes casually swept over the materials on the table, then he suddenly said, "Don't you want to look at that black iron piece?" "Ah?" Xiao Yan was stunned, then immediately took out the black iron piece. He looked at it carefully from top to bottom once, frowned and said, "What is this thing used for?" Old Yao took the iron piece naturally and smiled. Inside it, there seems to be a type of Dou skill. However, the person who made the iron piece was also an alchemist. Therefore, this iron piece can only be sensed by those with an extraordinary spiritual sense. Dou skill. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. He quickly asked, "What grade?" The importance of Dou skills on the Dou Qi Continent is no less than that of Dou Qi cultivation methods. A profound Dou skill can allow a person to unleash powerful strength far exceeding their own during battle. Dou skills and cultivation methods are both divided into heaven, earth, profound, and yellow grades. The highest level of Dou skills circulated among the common people is merely yellow grade high level. Some higher-level Dou skills can only be obtained at academies or sects. Of course, the Dou Qi continent is vast and boundless. There will be some Dou skills left by predecessors that are lost due to various reasons, and finally obtained by some lucky person. And the black iron piece Xiao Yan obtained now might have been left behind by a predecessor. Old Yao flipped the iron piece over and over. After a moment he smiled. Absorption palm. Profound grade low level. Profound grade low level. Xiao Yan's face was filled with joy. He hadn't expected that a casually bought piece of junk would actually conceal a profound grade Dou skill. One must know that in his clan, the most profound Dou skill was only profound grade mid-level, and only the clan leader and a few elders had the qualification to learn it. Absorption palm. When practiced to great completion, it can suck in 1,000-pound boulders. If used against an enemy, the fierce suction force can even forcefully draw out the blood from their body. Draw blood out of the body. Xiao Yan's face was shocked. He swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with a bit of astonishment, "This. Isn't that too fierce? If the blood is drawn out of the body, who can still live? This thing can naturally only deal with opponents lower than or equal to your level. If you meet a stronger opponent, they will directly use the suction force to approach you. It won't be good." Old Yao threw the iron piece back and said faintly. It seemed he didn't have a high opinion of this Dou skill. Old Yao was a great figure, so naturally, his standards were high. But in Xiao Yan's eyes, this was a high-grade Dou skill. He immediately happily took the black iron piece and smiled. No matter what, absorption palm is much better than the ordinary Dou skills in the clan. Later, I will learn it. TCH, with your 3-stage Dou Qi, being able to suck in a branch would be great already. Yet you still want to suck people's blood. Shaking his head, old Yao pouted and said. Xiao Yan glared at him, ignoring this eccentric old man, and hugged the iron piece to himself, chuckling. Look at you, getting so obsessed over a profound grade low-level Dou skill. It's really frightening. Shaking his head helplessly, old Yao picked up the magic crystal on the table and instructed Xiao Yan, "Go get a large basin of water." Seeing old Yao ready to start working, Xiao Yan quickly put away the black iron piece and hurriedly ran off to prepare. Inside the quiet room, old Yao held the purple leaf orchid grass in his left hand. He narrowed his eyes slightly. After a moment, he gently exhaled, and a white flame suddenly appeared in his left hand. As soon as the flame appeared, the temperature in the room increased significantly. Xiao Yan stared at the white flame without blinking. His heart was a little shaken. He clearly knew the process of an alchemist refining medicine, but to release Dou Qi outwards and materialize it, even his own father couldn't do that. With a calm expression, the white flame in old Yao's hand flickered slightly, engulfing the stalk of purple leaf orchid grass. The flame blazed and the purple leaf orchid grass was instantly burned into a little emerald liquid. His right hand picked up another stalk of purple leaf orchid grass and directly threw it into the flame. After throwing all 3 stalks of purple leaf orchid grass, the emerald liquid became much larger. The green liquid constantly moved within the flame. The scorching heat continuously burned away the impurities within it. As the flame burned, the emerald liquid shrank. A moment later, it was only about the size of a finger. Next, old Yao took 2 bone-cleansing flowers, put them into the flame, and after melting them, mixed them into the green liquid. After that, came the refinement of the magic crystal. These 3 steps lasted for about an hour. Old Yao's face was still full of spirit, without a single trace of fatigue. After an hour, the hard magic crystal had been melted into a light green liquid. The violent energy contained within the magic crystal was also neutralized by old Yao using a magical combination of medicinal properties. In his palm, the white flame gradually diminished, and finally completely disappeared. Looking at the jade-green liquid suspended in old Yao's palm, Xiao Yan, with his extraordinary sense of perception, clearly felt how immense the energy in this liquid was. "Teacher, do I just swallow it like this?" Xiao Yan blinked, feeling a bit impatient. "If you want to die, just swallow it directly. With your dinky meridians, you'll immediately become a genuine cripple." Glaring at Xiao Yan, old Yao gently flicked his finger. The jade-green liquid mixed into the water in the basin. Instantly, the basin of clear water turned green. "From now on, cultivate in this. With your talent, reaching 7th-stage Dou Qi in a year is not a difficult matter." Old Yao clapped his hands and smiled. "Oh, I almost forgot. This kind of medicinal liquid can only last for 2 months. In other words, you'll have to buy the same medicinal ingredients every 2 months." Old Yao said with a smile. Xiao Yan's face stiffened. He felt like crying and nodded. "Damn it. This thing really is only for the wealthy." The warm sunlight shone through the window, illuminating the clean room. Inside the room, the naked young man sat cross-legged in the wooden basin. His 2 hands were clasped together, forming a strange hand seal in front of him. His eyes were tightly closed, and his breathing was steady. Inside the wooden basin, the emerald liquid rippled slightly, reflecting a few strange lights, looking a bit magical. The young man's chest rose and fell gently, with a great sense of rhythm. As the cultivation time continued, the liquid gradually emitted a stream of gas. The stream of gas carried a green color, slowly floating up, and finally entered the body following the young man's breathing. As the airflow entered the body, the young man's tender face seemed to emit a gentle, jade-like glow. Seemingly having sensed that the Dou Qi in his body was becoming more and more abundant, a joyful smile appeared on the young man's face. Not having reached the limit, the young man did not stop. His eyes remained tightly closed, and the hand seal on his fingers was still and motionless. Calmly focusing his mind and energy, he maintained the best cultivation state, continuing to greedily absorb the gentle energy in the green liquid. The green liquid soaked into the young man's skin, and through every pore entered the young man's body, nourishing his bones and cleansing his meridians. With the young man's non-stopping actions, more and more air streams drifted out from the wooden basin. Finally, they subtly covered the young man's naked body. The cultivation, within the hard and painstaking training of forgetting everything but the goal, slowly passed. The sunlight shining in gradually weakened, and the scorching temperature also slowly dropped. Inside the wooden basin, the young man, with his eyes tightly closed, sucked the last stream of gas into his body. His eyelashes flickered slightly. After a moment, his pitch-black eyes suddenly opened. In his black pupils, the white light appeared as before, but this time it also carried a faint green color. Slowly exhaling, the young man, whose spirit was bright, blinked. He then forcefully stood up, letting the cold water droplets flow off his body at will. He awkwardly stretched and felt the abundant Dou Qi he hadn't felt for 3 years. He murmured with a bit of intoxication, "At this rate, I fear I can break through to 5th-stage Dou Qi in just 2 more months." Since the time he fully prepared all the necessary items, Xiao Yan had been in his room for more than half a month. In this half-month, apart from eating, drinking, and some personal hygiene, he had been hiding in his room to cultivate. Although the few days of cultivation were a bit dull, for someone who had experienced 3 years of being looked down upon and mocked like Xiao Yan, it was just a small matter. 3 years of mockery made him understand how important strength was on this continent. Although the cultivation in these few days was tiring, the results also filled him with joy. The spiritual liquid refined by Old Yao, although its medicinal power was very strong, also exceeded Xiao Yan's and even Old Yao's expectations. Originally, they thought that even with the medicinal power of the spiritual liquid, Xiao Yan would need at least a month to reach 4-stage Dou Qi. But they hadn't expected him to forcefully shorten the time by half. Regarding this matter, even Old Yao couldn't help but be surprised by Xiao Yan's cultivation efficiency. Although it was related to Xiao Yan having traveled this path before, was the speed too fast? One must know that when cultivating Dou Qi, the foundation is the most difficult to practice. The first 10 stages of Dou Qi, it's not a small number of people who spend 10 or even 20 years on it. Of course, once one becomes an official Dou practitioner, the cultivation speed will also be faster. Before becoming a Dou practitioner, sometimes it might take a year to increase Dou Qi by only 1 stage, but after entering the Dou practitioner stage, one might advance several stars in a year. With this kind of extremely different cultivation before and after, Xiao Yan's performance in the half-month also made others terrified. Xiao Yan carelessly stepped out of the wooden basin. He turned his head to look at the decreasing amount of green liquid. Because the energy contained within it was being absorbed by him, he helplessly shook his head and whispered, "Can this last for the remaining half-month of cultivation?" Wiping the remaining water off his body, Xiao Yan casually put on a clean set of clothes and then sat down on the bed. He took out the black iron piece from under his pillow. The dirt on the iron piece had been carefully washed off by Xiao Yan. The overall look was somewhat translucent, emitting a faint glow, giving a great sense of mystery. For the past half-month, besides cultivating, Xiao Yan's remaining focus had been entirely on this profound grade low-level Dou skill. And in this half-month, under Old Yao's guidance, Xiao Yan had gradually mastered the use of the absorption palm. However, due to the too little Dou Qi in his body, he hadn't seen the actual effect yet, which made Xiao Yan a little regretful. Clasping the iron piece between his hands, Xiao Yan slowly closed his eyes. His spiritual sense, following his arm, entered the iron piece by habit. Following Xiao Yan's steady breathing, the room became quiet again. After another long period of silence, at a certain moment, Xiao Yan on the bed suddenly opened his eyes. His right palm gently folded, forming a claw shape. The sparse Dou Qi in his body, controlled by his consciousness, quickly passed through several meridians and acupuncture points in his palm. Finally, a suction force burst forth. Bang! Following the direction of his palm, a vase on the table shook a few times, finally falling to the ground. With a crisp sound, it shattered into pieces on the ground. Alas, although the Dou skill is profound grade, the Dou Qi is too weak. It fundamentally cannot exert much power. Looking at the destructive power he had created, Xiao Yan pouted and whispered helplessly. At this effect, to suck a person, one needs at least 7-stage Dou Qi to be able to do it. That settles it. I'll go to the clan's Dou skill hall to see if there are any low-level Dou skills that are easy to use. Absorption palm won't have much effect in the short term. Now that I can cultivate Dou Qi, I can't be as foolish as before when cultivating. Taking a breath, Xiao Yan climbed off the bed. His eyes glanced at the black ring, then he pushed the door open. Squinting his eyes, after adapting to the sunlight for a bit, Xiao Yan then carefully closed the door. He leisurely walked on the gravel path, slowly heading towards the back courtyard. On both sides of the path, Lush ancient trees were planted, making people feel refreshed. Turning onto another path, a burst of young girls' laughter also came from another direction. The quiet atmosphere was disturbed. Xiao Yan frowned, looked towards the direction of the sound, and saw a group of young girls giggling as they approached. Among the several beautiful young girls, a charming young girl was smiling openly. Her face revealed a charming and alluring demeanor, making the few naive young girls next to her feel a little inferior. This young girl was Xiao Mei, the person who had gained great attention at the testing square. Xiao Yan's indifferent eyes glanced at the beautiful young girl, who had once followed him, constantly calling him Big Brother. A wave of mockery appeared on Xiao Yan's tender face. He gently shook his head, and unemotionally withdrew his gaze. Reaching the end of the path, Xiao Mei's attractive laughter suddenly faded. She looked at the young man not far to her left. The light disappeared at the horizon, shining on the young man whose hand was resting on the back of his neck. His face was detached and extremely captivating. A pair of eyes that could capture the soul looked at the young man who was getting closer. Seeing the expression on his face, which she couldn't tell if it was a smile or mockery, Xiao Mei's mind suddenly became a little confused and blank. 3 years ago, that young man's lips always had a captivating smile. Watching the young man slowly approach, Xiao Mei and the others all paused, their laughter and chatter greatly subdued. The beautiful young girls beside Xiao Mei stared with wide eyes at the young men, once considered the glory of the clan. The expression on their faces was a mixture of regret and something else entirely. Xiao Mei stood rooted, a bit flustered internally. Deep down, she often thought about the times she had happily chatted with this young man she had admired wholeheartedly. However, reality told her that the gap between them was growing, and setting her heart on a cripple was clearly not wise. Her curved brows slightly furrowed, then immediately relaxed. Xiao Mei thought with a touch of helplessness, I'll just say hello, after all, he is still technically my big brother, cousin. Unaware of Xiao Mei's thoughts, Xiao Yan walked leisurely toward them, his hands clasped behind his head. Seeing the young man draw near, Xiao Mei's beautiful face forced a rigid smile. But the young man's action caused that smile, which hadn't fully bloomed, to freeze on her face, making her look a little awkward. With his hands behind his head, Xiao Yan walked past them as if they were non-existent, his eyes indifferently sweeping over the young girls, showing no hint of lingering. Slightly opening her rosy mouth, watching the young man's retreating back. Xiao Mei was somewhat surprised. With her looks, when had she ever been treated this way? A trace of anger flashed in her heart, and she couldn't help but call out, Brother Xiao Yan. His steps paused slightly, but Xiao Yan did not turn around. His tone was indifferent, like two strangers speaking to each other, is there something you need? The calm yet unfamiliar tone left Xiao Mei stunned. She stammered and shook her head, no. Xiao Yan furrowed his brow, didn't pay it any mind, shook his head, and continued walking. Watching his figure vanish at the end of the path, Xiao Mei stomped her foot in frustration and continued on her way. Turning a corner, Xiao Yan looked up at the wide-open hall before his eyes. The sign above the hall bore 3 large, red, magnificent characters, Dou Skill Hall. Hearing the cheers emanating from the Dou Skill Hall, Xiao Yan was a little surprised. This place was usually sparsely populated, why was it so lively today? Shrugging, Xiao Yan casually dismissed the thought, and stepped into the Dou Skill Hall. Upon entering, bursts of cheers from young boys and girls continuously rang out. The Dou Skill Hall was divided into 2 parts. The east side housed the clan's Dou skills, while the west side was a training ground of considerable size. At this moment, quite a few people in the training ground were eagerly watching 2 individuals sparring in the center of the arena. Looking at the density of Dou Qi on cousin Xiaoning, I fear he's already reached 8th stage Dou Qi A. Heh heh. Cousin Xiaoning stepped into 8th stage Dou Qi 2 months ago. Although he has 8-stage Dou Qi, cousin Sun Er is at 9-stage. It seems cousin Xiaoning truly has no chance of winning a. Cousin Sun Er, keep it up. Hearing the crowd's astonished discussions, Xiao Yan's steps finally paused. His gaze swept across the center of the arena, eventually settling with some interest on the beautiful young girl in purple. Why is this girl so idle today, sparring with others? Muttering to himself, Xiao Yan stopped at the east side of the Dou Skill Hall. He casually took out a black scroll, then slowly unrolled it. Several large golden characters appeared on the scroll's surface. Yellow grade mid-level, rock-crushing palm. Leaning leisurely against the bookshelf, Xiao Yan read the cultivation method for the rock-crushing palm, while occasionally glancing at the intense battle situation in the training ground. The vast hall was as if split into two separate worlds. The west side was noisy and bustling, while the east side was quiet and peaceful. Sun Er's opponent was a young man, only about 17 or 18 years old. He was quite handsome. Not too different from Yao Lao from the previous encounter. The young man, named Xiaoning, was the nephew of the Xiao clan's first elder. His cultivation talent was not bad. At 17, he had already cultivated to 8-stage Dou Qi. In the clan, only Sun Er was better than him. Xiao Yan didn't have much of an impression of this cousin of his. When they occasionally met, they exchanged awkward greetings before both parties left. Perhaps it was because his grandfather and his own father were not on good terms. Xiao Yan also sensed that this cousin didn't have much goodwill towards him, and coupled with his 3 years of decline, this cousin had not particularly sought him out to cause trouble during those 3 years. Smiling faintly, Xiao Yan dismissed the memories in his head and continued to study the rock-crushing palm in his hand. In the training ground, Sun Er was like a light purple butterfly, elegantly and swiftly dodging Xiaoning's attacks. Her exquisite and graceful face consistently maintained a look of calmness. Her hands boldly deflected Xiaoning's close-range attacks each time. Sun Er's eyes casually scanned the hall, suddenly stopping sharply. Looking at the young man leaning against the bookshelf on the east side of the hall, a gentle smile appeared on Sun Er's clear and soft face. The young girl's pure smile, like a blooming flower, caused the nearby young men to stare blankly for a moment. Cousin Sun Er, be careful. Just as Sun Er was slightly distracted, an anxious voice suddenly came from the crowd. Sensing the fierce force of an attack coming from behind, Sun Er gently frowned. Her gaze quickly swept back to the young man standing by the bookshelf. At the same time, Xiao Yan also looked up. Seeing Sun Er being ambushed in the arena, he raised an eyebrow, shook his head helplessly, his eyes revealing a hint of worry. Looking at Xiao Yan's reproachful and worried gaze, Sun Er lightly smiled and blinked her beautiful eyes. Then, her body suddenly took a step to the left. These small steps were somewhat unconventional, yet unexpectedly managed to evade Xiaoning's attack. As her feet moved, Sun Er's jade-like palm revealed a faint golden glow. A move as if piercing through flowers and seizing leaves penetrated Xiaoning's defensive stance, finally lightly stopping in front of his chest. Tapping her toes lightly on the stone floor, Sun Er slowly flipped around, dissolving the recoil force. She looked calmly at Xiaoning, who retreated more than 10 steps before finally stepping out of the training ground. Watching Sun Er defeat Xiaoning with a single palm strike, the area around the training ground fell silent, then immediately erupted in cheers and applause. Haha, cousin Sun Er is truly the number one among the younger generation of the clan. You are truly getting stronger and stronger. Though defeated by Sun Er, Xiaoning's expression was calm, and he gave a warm smile. He walked forward, speaking with a gentle smile. Looking at the beautiful, lotus-like young girl in front of him, the admiration in Xiaoning's eyes was almost undisguised. Although they were referred to as cousins, Xiaoning knew that most people in the clan were not close blood relatives, and Xiao Sun Er had no blood relation to him whatsoever. Seeming not to notice Xiaoning's fiery gaze, Sun Er politely yet distantly shook her head and whispered, "Cousin Xiaoning, you are too humble." After speaking, without waiting for Xiaoning to approach further, she smiled and walked towards the young man who was buried in the scroll on the east side of the hall. As the focus of the hall, Sun Er's actions were naturally noticed by others. Eyes followed Sun Er's path, eventually settling on the young man standing by the bookshelf. Facing the fiery gazes from the training ground, the young man seemed oblivious, still immersed in his own world. The young girl stood in front of Xiao Yan, her fair, soft hands clasped behind her back, her body slightly leaning forward. Her large, nimble eyes were beautiful, and her body curved like a crescent moon. A dimple appeared on her beautiful face, she was truly adorable. Taking his eyes off the scroll, Xiao Yan smiled at the young girl in front of him. Then, his gaze swept over the hall. Seeing the fervent eyes directed at him, he couldn't help but say with some helplessness, "Girl, I know your charm is considerable, but you shouldn't use me as a shield, should you?" He. Pouting, Sun Er chuckled softly. She sat down leaning against Xiao Yan. With a lazy stretch, her alluring figure immediately showed through her tight-fitting clothes. She casually took a scroll from the bookshelf behind her. Sun Er's gaze lingered on Xiao Yan for a moment, and she said with a lazy smile, "Brother Xiao Yan, have you entered 4th-stage Dou Qi already?" Hearing this question, Xiao Yan, who was buried in the scroll, raised his brows slightly. The 10 stages of Dou Qi all belong to the preliminary phase. The fluctuation of Dou Qi in this stage was faint and weak, making it difficult to detect. Therefore, unless one used Dou Qi or a testing stone to probe, it was very difficult to accurately distinguish which stage the Dou Qi master had reached. Yet now, after merely a casual glance, Sun Er could state the precise detail. This truly made Xiao Yan feel a bit surprised. What exactly is this girl's background? Looking at the Dou skill she used when fighting Xiaoning earlier, it was clearly a high-level Dou skill. This kind of golden light Dou skill is not something the Xiao clan can possess. A thought flashed through his mind. Xiao Yan tilted his head, looked closely at the young girl next to him, gently shrugged, and nodded softly, 4th stage already. Seeing Xiao Yan nod, the smile on Sun Er's face immediately deepened a few shades. She chuckled softly. It seems to be related to brother Xiao Yan closing himself off to cultivate for the past half-month. Nodding slightly, Xiao Yan did not deny it. His eyes returned to the scroll, and he casually asked, "Are you idle today that you came to spar with them?" Copying Xiao Yan's shrug, Sun Er chuckled softly, "I was just bored." Her gaze shifted to the young man, with a hint of subtle resentment. Since that time, brother Xiao Yan hasn't come to find Sun Er for half a month. Are you afraid Sun Er will ask you for money? Xiao Yan flinched, feeling a little ashamed. He smiled bitterly. Next year is the coming-of-age ceremony. How can I not rush to cultivate? He looked up, seeing the young girl slightly wrinkling her nose. He could only reach out and gently pat Sun Er's head affectionately, comforting her gently. I will definitely save time for Sun Er in the future. Hearing Xiao Yan's guarantee, Sun Er's small face relaxed slightly. She continuously laughed and chatted into Xiao Yan's ear. This intimate scene caused all the young men in the hall to have their eyes turn red with envy. Watching the two talking and laughing from afar, Xiaoning's mouth twitched slightly. His face was somewhat unsightly, and his fists clenched and unclenched. As the nephew of the clan's first elder, Xiaoning's sense of superiority was always very strong. For the extraordinary young girl Sun Er, Xiaoning had unilaterally and firmly decided in his heart that she would be his future wife, even if this was only his one-sided hope. Now, seeing his future wife talking and laughing intimately with another person, with no distance between them, the flames of jealousy in Xiaoning's heart surged. Moreover, The most crucial thing was that the person talking intimately with Sun Er was the most useless cripple in the clan. Anger continuously poured out of his eyes. After a moment, Xiao Ning slowly exhaled. A warm smile returned to his face. He adjusted his somewhat messy clothes, and under everyone's watchful eyes, he quickly walked towards the two people sitting by the bookshelf. In the hall, everyone watched Xiao Ning walking toward the two, and they couldn't help but chuckle with a touch of schadenfreude, joy at the misfortune of others. Of course, this laughter wasn't aimed at Xiao Ning, but at the Xiao Yan, who seemed unaware of what was happening. His eyes scanned the shape of the meridians on the scroll within the human body. Xiao Yan quietly and meticulously memorized the acupuncture points that needed to be activated, along with the position and direction of the meridians. Gently letting out a breath, Xiao Yan's brows suddenly furrowed. His sharp spiritual sense allowed him to clearly perceive the movements of everyone in the hall, including that Xiao Ning, who was walking towards him. This girl truly is a magnet for trouble, he sighed. Xiao Yan slowly put the scroll in his hand away. Haha, cousin Xiao Yan, are you here to learn Dou skills? Do you need me, your cousin, to help you choose some high-level ones? There are some things that you might not have the required authority for yet. Standing in front of Xiao Yan with a mocking smile, Xiao Ning spoke. Xiao Yan put the scroll away in his hand, and lightly placed it back on the bookshelf. He gently shook his head, saying without interest, "Thank you for your concern, but I don't need it right now." Oh, I almost forgot. Cousin Xiao Yan's Dou Qi is only at the 3rd stage. Things that are too high level are indeed very difficult to learn. Rubbing his forehead, Xiao Ning chuckled as if suddenly remembering. However, the mocking intent on his face was not well concealed. Xiao Yan gently sighed. You truly sought this out yourself. With a malicious curl to his lips, Xiao Yan said with a hint of helplessness, I know you're saying these meaningless things to attract Sun Er's attention, but I still have to say, you're truly childish. Being bluntly and mercilessly mocked by Xiao Yan, the smile on Xiao Ning's face slowly faded. He hadn't expected the usually silent and reserved Xiao Yan to suddenly have the courage to spar verbally with him. His face immediately turned gloomy. He laughed coldly. It seems cousin Xiao Yan holds some prejudice against this cousin of yours. How about we have a martial arts spar? Let me see how much progress you've made in these past few years. Do you want to spar with me instead? Sun Er put down the scroll in her hand. She lifted her small face, her beautiful, nimble eyes emitting a hint of coldness. His eye twitched, seeing Sun Er offering to spar in place of Xiao Yan. The flames of jealousy in Xiao Ning's heart burned even higher. He glared fiercely at Xiao Yan and mocked, You only know how to hide behind a woman. 3 years ago, why didn't you dare to say this to me? Xiao Yan stood on his toes, took down a bundle of scrolls, blew the dust off the top, and said indifferently. It must be said that Xiao Yan's calm and self-assured demeanor, when seen by those who disliked him, truly made them feel as if their chest was suffocated. Fiercely grinding his teeth, making a cracking sound, although he was already furious, Xiao Ning did not dare to openly attack Xiao Yan. No matter how low Xiao Yan's cultivation talent was, he was still the clan leader's son. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Ning gave Xiao Yan a sinister side glance. He slightly lowered his head and whispered into Xiao Yan's ear, Xiao Yan, you are no longer the cultivation genius you were 3 years ago. You are nothing but a cripple now. Sun Er is not someone you can reach, you should know your place. Stay away from her early. Otherwise, although I can't attack you openly right now, in the coming-of-age ceremony next year, you are obligated to accept a challenge from a clan member. If you don't want to become a crippled person, I advise you to hurry up and disappear. Hide in those remote, desolate places and live out your life in peace. Hearing these threats, Xiao Yan's mouth slightly curled. He tilted his head slightly, and used a very peculiar gaze to size up Xiao Ning. Then, with a look of contempt, he held the scroll in his hand, turned around, and walked away. Watching Xiao Yan's action, Xiao Ning thought he had compromised. Unexpectedly, before Xiao Ning could feel delighted, Xiao Yan's seemingly casual words instantly turned Xiao Ning's face ashen. All right. 1 year from now, I'll wait for you to cripple me. Ignoring the sinister gaze behind him, Xiao Yan took the scroll to register with the manager of the Dou Skill Hall, then talked and laughed with some air, slowly leaving the Dou Skill Hall. You little bastard, just you wait. When you are assigned outside the clan, I'll have plenty of time to deal with you. Without the clan leader's protection, you are less than a dog. Watching the receding figures, Xiao Ning was so hateful that he ground his teeth. He flipped his hand and struck the nearby bookshelf with a palm, immediately leaving a faint handprint on the shelf. Leaving the Dou Skill Hall, Xiao Yan first spent the whole afternoon playing happily with the extremely joyful sun air on the back mountain. Only after the sky gradually darkened did he return to his room. Back in his room, closing the door, Xiao Yan immediately relaxed his shoulders. He placed the scroll on the table, picked up the teacup, and drained it in one go. He smiled bitterly, somewhat apprehensive of the future consequences. This girl truly is too much. That little girl, her background seems extraordinary, eh? Old Yao's voice suddenly echoed in the room. With a tired sigh, Xiao Yan looked up at old Yao, who had appeared in the room like a ghost. He curled his lips and asked lazily, Teacher, do you know her background? Heh, I know a little. Old Yao slightly narrowed his eyes, chuckling. Seeing Xiao Yan's curious gaze, he suddenly cut him off. You shouldn't ask. Even if you knew now, there would be no good in it. So it's better not to ask. I can only say that the little girl's background is quite powerful. Xiao Yan gave him a disdainful glance. He could only angrily flip him off, give him the middle finger. What did you bring back all this garbage for? Are you afraid of having too much energy? Old Yao walked to the table, casually flipping through the bundle of scrolls, and asked in surprise. Garbage? Xiao Yan curled his lips and groaned weakly. Right now, besides the absorption palm, I don't know any other Dou skills. Before, I only focused on cultivating Dou Qi, and never learned any Dou skills. And in the clan, only these yellow-grade Dou skills can be learned freely. If I don't learn these, what will I use to fight others in the coming-of-age ceremony? TCH, you just want to fish out a Dou skill from my hands. The old man's eyes looked at Xiao Yan with contempt. The shrewd old Yao instantly saw through his purpose. Having his true intention exposed, Xiao Yan wasn't embarrassed. He shrugged, his eyes looking eagerly at old Yao. What's so great about Dou skills? Wait until you finish learning the alchemy technique. People will be fighting over each other to give them to you. Old Yao said with a faint smile, completely ignoring Xiao Yan's resentful expression. But I need a high-level Dou skill right now, teacher. Xiao Yan said frustratedly. Seeing Xiao Yan's distressed look, old Yao laughed loudly twice, shook his head, and then said with an amused smile, All right, who told me to take in such a pathetic disciple? To keep you from being crippled by others, I'll teach you a few things. Hearing old Yao's words, Xiao Yan's spirit was roused. He was very curious about what level of Dou skill this mysterious teacher would finally bring out. Your absorption palm is a profound grade Dou skill, but it's somewhat famous but useless. Has a good name but little practical use. Since your current strength is insufficient, I'll first teach you a profound grade Dou skill known for its attacking power. This Dou skill doesn't have high requirements. 5-stage Dou Qi is enough to unleash some power. Old Yao said with a smile. What grade of profound grade? Hearing old Yao say it was a profound grade Dou skill, Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. He licked his lips and asked urgently. It's profound grade high level. I remember someone pleaded with tears to me to accept this Dou skill back then, but I had no interest in such things. If I hadn't wanted to avoid trouble, I wouldn't have even agreed to refine an elixir for him. Old Yao said as if it were nothing. His nonchalant manner made it sound as if he were talking about trash piled on the ground. Profound grade high level. Pleaded with tears for you to accept it. Xiao Yan's mind was a little dizzy, and his heart felt a bit battered. The highest Dou skill, known as the clan's absolute art, was only profound grade mid-level, yet the one old Yao casually brought out was profound grade high level. This terrifying difference in rank truly made Xiao Yan feel half amused, half frustrated. Close your eyes and focus your mind, I will transmit it to you. Casually giving the instruction, old Yao raised his finger, then gently touched Xiao Yan's forehead. A sharp pain shot through his head. Xiao Yan suddenly felt a massive amount of information flooding into his brain. The sudden influx of information immediately made Xiao Yan's head feel swollen. 8 Extreme Collapse, profound grade high-level Dou skill, close combat Dou skill, known for its powerful attack force. When cultivated to great completion, the attack will contain 8 layers of inner force. The 8 layers of force stacked together can make its power comparable to a heaven-grade low-level Dou skill. His mind slowly cleared up. After meticulously reviewing the raw data for half a day, Xiao Yan finally inhaled a breath of cold air. Its attack power could be comparable to a heaven-grade low-level Dou skill. On the Dou Qi Continent, whether it was a cultivation method or a Dou skill, the difference between profound grade and heaven grade was like the difference between heaven and earth. They couldn't be compared. Yet now, this 8 Extreme Collapse, which was only profound grade high level, could boast that in terms of attack power, it was comparable to a heaven grade Dou skill. This left Xiao Yan no choice but to be shaken. Swallowing a mouthful of saliva, Xiao Yan stared wide-eyed. If he could truly learn this Dou skill, he might be able to use just his current 4 stage Dou Qi to knock the teeth out of that arrogant Xiaoning. Stop standing there stunned. Although the 8 Extreme Collapse doesn't have high requirements for Dou Qi, it has extremely high requirements for the body's physical strength. This is a close combat Dou skill. Looking at your skinny limbs, if you force its use, I fear your body will break before your opponent. Old Yao's words were like a bucket of cold water thrown on Xiao Yan, dissolving all his excitement. What must I do to strengthen my physical body? After a moment of silence, Xiao Yan quickly asked. Dou Qi is the best energy source for training the body. The stronger the Dou Qi, the stronger the body becomes. Of course, if you want to speed it up, you'll need the stimulation of external forces. Old Yao slightly narrowed his eyes. A hint of malice seemed to flicker in his old eyes. What kind of external stimulation is that? Looking at old Yao's smiling face, Xiao Yan suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. Being beaten. The harder you're beaten, the better. Old Yao laughed sinisterly, while Xiao Yan's small face froze up. Early morning, white mist covered the back of the mountain peak, lingering for a long time. The gentle wind blew, suddenly resonating with the body to form a sound. On the back mountain peak, in a secret spot within a small forest, Xiao Yan's feet were planted in the mud. Cold sweat poured down his forehead. His entire body was naked save for a pair of shorts, and blue marks appeared on his skin. Behind Xiao Yan, old Yao, in his soul state, sat cross-legged on a giant boulder. He watched Xiao Yan stubbornly gritting his teeth. His hand gently waved. Following old Yao's wave, the air slightly oscillated. A streak of pink Dou Qi shot out from old Yao's palm, like an ordinary whip, and struck Xiao Yan's shoulder with great force, leaving a trail of blue marks on Xiao Yan's body. His mouth twitched violently. Inhaling a mouthful of cold air, Xiao Yan felt his shoulder go numb. A pain that pierced his soul followed. Under this pain, Xiao Yan's legs went soft. He nearly fell down. Enduring the intense pain, the silver-colored Dou Qi in his body rapidly formed. Stimulated by the pain, this silver Dou Qi became more substantial. It circulated through the various acupuncture points in his shoulder. A trace of warmth slowly permeated his body, silently performing the strengthening process. Again. The pain on his shoulder had just disappeared when old Yao mobilized his Dou Qi to strike Xiao Yan's shoulder again. Xiao Yan's tender face was etched with a look of determination and stubbornness. Watching Xiao Yan's perseverance, a hint of joy appeared on old Yao's old face. He nodded slightly, and his hand waved again. The pink Dou Qi shot out once more. Bang, bang, bang. Inside the forest, the sounds of pain and struggle, combined with chaotic suffering, rang out continuously. Old Yao's strikes were precisely measured. Each attack reached the exact state that Xiao Yan's body could withstand. This ensured that Xiao Yan was not seriously injured while still allowing him to feel the pain. As the Dou Qi struck his body, the sensation of whole-body pain caused Xiao Yan's small face to become distorted and contorted. Following old Yao's repeated hand movements, the blue marks on Xiao Yan's body increased. Bang! Another streak of Dou Qi shot out. Like a drop that overflowed the glass, Xiao Yan finally reached his limit of endurance. His legs went soft, and he fell down exhausted. After half a day of regulating his breath, with cold sweat still on his forehead, Xiao Yan smiled bitterly and asked, "Teacher, how was it?" "Indeed. Today you endured 84 Dou Qi strikes, which is 9 times more than half a month ago. You've truly become much stronger." Old Yao smiled and nodded slightly. But in his heart, he was astonished. In just half a month, Xiao Yan's performance had exceeded his expectations. For instance, today, he originally thought 70 strikes would be Xiao Yan's limit, yet he persevered until the 84th strike. He truly had to marvel at the young fellow's patience. Hearing old Yao's words, Xiao Yan sighed in relief. Exhausted, he sat down to rest. After a while, when his body recovered its sensation, he slowly stood up, gradually putting on the clothes that were draped on the rock. The injuries on his body touched the fabric, causing Xiao Yan to feel pain again. At this moment, old Yao transformed into a streak of light and entered the black ring, leaving behind a phrase he had said many times: "Hurry back and use the foundation elixir to soak yourself. Otherwise, bruises will remain inside your body, which will lead to a serious injury." Nodding indifferently after putting on his clothes, Xiao Yan immediately flew down the back of the mountain. Returning to his small room, Xiao Yan, who could no longer tolerate the pain, quickly stripped off his clothes and jumped into the wooden basin that was already filled with the green liquid. The cold, clear water flooded his wounds. Xiao Yan immediately felt a sense of relief. He inhaled a few mouthfuls of cold air, feeling a sensation of blissful lightness. He slowly closed his eyes to enjoy this comfortable feeling, lying lazily in the wooden basin without moving. Leaning against the side of the wooden basin, Xiao Yan's breathing was even. He unknowingly drifted off to sleep. After being subjected to a round of painful torture, Xiao Yan's spirit was finally relaxed. His body's fatigue allowed him to sink into sleep. While Xiao Yan was sleeping soundly, the green liquid slightly stirred. A faint, gentle energy slowly permeated through his pores, quietly entering his body, clearing out the bruises one by one, while continuously reforming and strengthening his body. Lost in sleep, Xiao Yan's body was unknowingly strengthened as well. During the process of strengthening and repairing his body, the green liquid in the wooden basin gradually faded, clearly indicating that the medicinal power hidden within the liquid medicine was about to be completely absorbed by Xiao Yan. He did not know how long he had slept. But Xiao Yan only knew that when he woke up, the sunlight shining from the outside had already covered his room. Forcing himself to move his body, his bones rattled. Sitting up, he felt his whole body full of vitality. Xiao Yan couldn't help but exclaim, "What comfort!" Stepping out of the wooden basin, Xiao Yan suddenly noticed that the clear liquid had completely replaced the original green color. The medicinal power is completely absorbed. Scratching his nose, Xiao Yan helplessly shook his head. He suddenly seemed to remember something, a hint of joy in his eyes. He slowly closed his eyes to sense the state of the Dou Qi in his body. A moment later, Xiao Yan opened his eyes. He swung his two palms and chuckled softly, unable to hide his delight. "I finally reached 5-stage Dou Qi. It took half a month to advance 4 stages of Dou Qi, and the next half month to advance to the 5th stage. This speed of cultivation was truly extraordinary. Even the Xiao Yan of the past probably wouldn't have been able to keep up." Although it was said that the difficulty of advancing 1 stage of Dou Qi would increase accordingly each time, looking at his current speed, Xiao Yan thought that spending 1 year to cultivate to the 7th stage of Dou Qi was not an overly difficult matter. Of course, the prerequisite was the ample supply of foundation elixir. Otherwise, Xiao Yan would be seriously injured and die during old Yao's training before even cultivating to 7th-stage Dou Qi. After all, without the healing effect of the foundation elixir, based on the weak bones of Xiao Yan's body, there was no other path to take besides death caused by too much blood stasis accumulating inside the body. Therefore, the most urgent task for Xiao Yan right now was to continue buying materials, and then refine the foundation elixir. Although it sounded simple, Xiao Yan was facing a considerable problem. He didn't have much money left. Sitting on the bed, Xiao Yan's face was full of bitter smiles. He hadn't expected to be forced into this situation, so he began to calculate. The money left over from the last purchase was still over 900 gold coins. Using this amount to buy the same quality materials as last time was clearly insufficient. Resting his chin on his hand and pondering for a moment, Xiao Yan's eyes rolled. He suddenly spoke up, "Teacher, can the purple leaf orchid grass or the bone-cleansing flower be of a slightly lower grade?" "You can, but the medicinal power will be weaker. The foundation elixir formula I gave you is the most suitable one for refining." Old Yao's voice came from inside the ring. Xiao Yan widened his eyes and chuckled softly, "No problem. This time, let's use the poorest quality materials to refine it." "The poorest quality?" "With such weak effectiveness, you might need half a year to break through to the next stage of Dou Qi." Old Yao's voice carried a hint of dissatisfaction. He frowned as he spoke. "Isn't the money enough? Go find that little girl. Judging by her background, a few tens of thousands of gold coins is a small matter for her. If not, go find your father. Why weaken the medicinal power and delay your own cultivation?" Hearing old Yao's suggestion, Xiao Yan shook his head helplessly. "Do you think my self-esteem is just like a starving ghost's? How can I repeatedly ask a young girl for money? I also calculated with my father that I've been hiding from him for 2 months. If I went to him for money, wouldn't he investigate, and wouldn't that expose you, teacher?" "Teacher, can others refine this foundation elixir?" As if remembering something, Xiao Yan suddenly frowned and asked. "Ha boy, on the Dou Qi Continent, the amount of medicinal ingredients is countless. To refine elixirs with different effects, one must rely on countless types of materials. Within, carefully selecting them to be able to successfully refine the violent energy of the magic core. Only then can you successfully refine the elixir you need. If you combine them recklessly, a failed stove or a damaged elixir is a small matter. If you encounter a backlash, hee." Speaking up to this point, old Yao chuckled, and then continued, "This foundation elixir is a formula that I experimented with for many years to finally condense Of course, others might accidentally create this formula, but the probability is truly too small. Furthermore, during the refining process, the proportions and fusion of the three materials, the heat of the flame, all these require countless experiments and super strong spiritual sense to master. Otherwise, why do you think every alchemist needs a master to teach them? To become a powerful alchemist without a famous master's guidance is basically impossible. Otherwise, this glorious formula experimentation could consume your whole life. Therefore, I dare not speak for the entire Dou Qi Continent, but I can bet that in the Jiama Empire, no one can refine the foundation elixir the way I do. As he said this, a hint of pride was hidden in old Yao's voice. Somewhat shocked by the complexity of the foundation elixir, Xiao Yan subconsciously licked his lips. He thought old Yao's refining process looked very simple before, but only now did he realize that the small surface details of refining elixirs were just the tip of the iceberg. The world of alchemists is truly unfathomable. No wonder it became the most venerable profession on the Dou Qi Continent. After the shock subsided, a hint of joy appeared in Xiao Yan's heart. He licked his lips and said subconsciously, "Teacher, I don't intend to use the poorest quality foundation elixir for cultivation. I plan to auction it off. I don't have enough money right now. Once the money is in hand, we can buy the best materials. Anyway, refining the foundation elixir is just an effortless task for you. How about it? In that case, do as you wish." It's not surprising for an alchemist to auction their own elixir. Furthermore, that foundation elixir is only a low-level nourishing medicine. Selling it is fine. After a brief silence, old Yao spoke as if it were nothing. Hearing the old man agree, Xiao Yan chuckled. He immediately packed up his belongings and eagerly left the room. Because he didn't need the best materials this time, Xiao Yan casually selected 5 portions of the poorest quality purple leaf orchid grass and bone-cleansing flower from the medicinal materials stall. As for the wood attribute magic core, after checking, he bought the cheapest Qing Murat magic core. Having bought the necessary medicinal ingredients, Xiao Yan found an inn, and hid there for old Yao to refine the foundation elixir. This time, the foundation elixir not only had much weaker medicinal power than before, but the transparent jade green color had also turned into emerald green. Collecting the amount of foundation elixir, which was half the size of his palm, into the small white jade bottle he had bought earlier, Xiao Yan finally breathed a sigh of relief. Holding the jade bottle carefully, Xiao Yan left the inn. He quickly walked to the largest auction house in Wuten City.